one of the issues when you move all your educational stuff to your work account is that you don't know what to do with your account. Hey everybody, my name is Carol Brown. I am an urban fantasy author and a writer for Otherworld Inc. and Three Fates Press, and I also write under the name of Faye Black. I'm going to start introducing the Faye Black pen name right now just because I don't want to make separate social media accounts for the other genre that I'm writing in right now. So Faye Black is associated with the romance that I'm working on right now that I'm hoping to have finished the first draft by the end of November, but we'll see. It's going to actually end up being my NaNoWriMo project, just hammering it as much of that out as I can, so we'll see how that goes. I spent the majority of this week trying to figure out what I was going to talk about this week because, as I said at the beginning of the video, I've moved all my educational stuff over to the work account. I have a whole bunch of videos that I've recorded and I'm editing them, and then I'm going to send it to them and they're going to post them. And so I did all that, and then I was like, well, what am I going to talk about here? So I thought I would just kind of sit here and have a chat with you guys about the life of an author, because there's a lot of misconceptions and there's a lot of articles that are coming out and there's just so much that's happening right now, and I think there needs to be a little bit more transparency about how this all works. And part of the reason I kind of want to mention this is because the amount of people I'm running into who are thinking that, you know, they're going to write their book, it's going to be a bestseller, and then it's going to be a made movie is reaching kind of a high, and it's a little concerning because these are people who are willing to like quit their day job and stop doing everything and then just do writing full time. And a lot of writers actually still work a day job. They work their day job and then they write, and then, you know, the money that they make on top of the books is kind of like icing on the cake. A lot of them aren't able to like write full time without having a stable job until much later, and there's a lot that's actually involved if you are a full-time writer, because when you work for a company or any kind of industry and they cut you a check for your salary or your hours or however you want to word that, there's some stuff that's taken out of that that's for your benefit. You know, obviously they take out the taxes, they also take out the stuff for your medical insurance, they take out stuff for your retirement, and that doesn't really happen when you're an author. A big reality break, you kind of have to start like planning really far ahead. You know, for example, if you get an advance from a publisher, they're not immediately going to go ahead and cut out the stuff that you're going to need for retirement or the stuff that you need for your Medicare. They're not going to provide you with Medicare either. You kind of have to sign up on that on your own, and these are things I'd like you all to think about as you progress forward with this writing idea. You have to really think ahead, you gotta budget, you've gotta plan accordingly, and you have to kind of know what you gotta do. When I wrote my first book, I was actually working full-time as a teacher. So I would go and I would wake up at the crack of dawn, go to my job, finish that at around 4 or 5, depending on if there was a meeting or not after work, and then I would go home and I would basically spend the rest of the evening writing. And that was something that I could do at the time because for the first, I want to say half of the book, I wasn't actually in college, and then I got in college, so then I had to learn to structure my time a little bit more, so I wasn't writing as much because college is a priority, and I'm still working full time. And you know, when I quit my job, I didn't quit my job because it's like I had signed up with a publisher and I have no more worries. I left my job because I was dealing with a bullying situation that administration didn't want anything to do with, and I had to make a choice between working or my mental health, and I'm just gonna let y'all know mental health always wins out. But I didn't just quit, right? I didn't just quit. I had a long conversation with my spouse, we looked at the finances, we made a plan, and then I executed the plan. It was very difficult for me to resign from teaching in the first semester, but I did it, and I just told them, you know, and I'll be honest, when I quit teaching, I got so much guilt over it. I got guilt from parents, I got guilt from administration, I got guilt from everybody. The people I didn't get guilt from was actually the students, because they got it. They understood. They're on the ground level with the teachers. They know exactly what it's like. So when I was like, look, I'm resigning, I can't deal with this environment anymore, they were just kind of like, no, we get you, miss, we get you. And then there's just so much, like, I think one of the big issues that I've always had since I've gone into the publishing industry, you know, I worked for the company and all that, is that there's just so much that is not clear to writers. Like, I don't know if the big publishers keep it vague on purpose or if it's some kind of weird trade secret or whatever, but there's so much that writers don't know, and they have to, you know, make guesses, or they have to go and talk to other writers. Like, there's no really, like, there's how to get published books, but it's kind of like, there's really, like, hold on, no, I think there is a book. Hold, please. Okay, so I went through the 3 main books I usually use when it comes to, like, self-published authors or getting into publishing in general. This one talks about the grants that you can get to help you make money. If you don't have a copy of this, you can go to the local library. If you're overseas, I can't help you there. I went through that book. I went through Joanna Penn's Success for Self-Publishing. And this is a really good book when they're trying to talk about, like, marketing yourself and how to do it frugally. So this is a really good book for that. And then this book right here, The Complete Guide for Self-Publishing, which I offered way back for a giveaway prize, has some really good stuff when it comes to... It has a really lot of good information when it comes to making your publishing company, going into publishing, selling to Goliaths, and also talks about like the different kind of ad revenues that you can get. But none of these talk about how to manage your money as an author. This is really turning into me rambling about the life of an author. And you know, I'm going to talk about this a little bit in the podcast with Tamara that we have coming out next week, but I do want to mention it here a little bit, and it's that things are changing in publishing. Like just giving you kind of an idea is that you may have heard that advances for traditionally published authors are getting smaller and smaller, and obviously they depend on what genre you're writing. You know, if the genre they're expecting is going to sell well, they'll give you a big advance. If not, then they don't give you a big advance. But there is proof. I went through a census that came out about the income that authors are getting, and they did notice that there is a decrease in the advances that authors are getting. And the reason that they are getting a decrease in the advances is mostly due to Amazon. Amazon is always pushing to have lower prices to sell more products off of there, and of course that money has to come from somewhere, so it usually comes from the author advances. Now, if you need that advance, then that may be a problem for you, but if you're okay with having that cushion money and then making off on the royalties after that, if you do make royalties after that, then you should be okay. But again, in the market that we have today, it's really hard to say what is going to do well and isn't going to do well. There have been some books that have come out in the last 2 years that everybody's like, yeah, this book's going to be amazing, and then it flopped. It was really bad. And I say this in the nicest way possible, but because that happens with such a high frequency, it kind of reflects on publishing industry overall and their ability to kind of track what it is that people want to read. Now, don't get me wrong, there's definitely a loud group of people that will come out and say what kind of books that they want to read, but at the same time, there are a lot of readers who are just not active on social media or really kind of venture out into the internet in general. They go find their books from their authors that they really like, they purchase them, they put their money where their interest is, and people just don't always get that input from that group of people. And you know, I could totally be wrong about this. Please feel free to fact check me or, you know, just have a discussion with me on this. This is literally just coming from my observation over how the last, I say 2-3 years have gone. I've definitely been tracking things since I decided to take my writing seriously, and then of course when I started working for Otherworld Inc., I was just like, when I have to look at this from a very serious, you know, professional level. And so I have been just tracking a lot of things that are going on. And the one thing that I'm just seeing is that there's an assumption about what the market wants, but the market doesn't actually want it. I'd like to use vampires as an example of this. I hear that if you have a story and it's got vampire in the synopsis or in the story at all, it's just immediately rejected because it's not in right now. Like, people are trying to avoid Twilight, but with everybody that I hang out with, and I have a very diverse group of people that I hang out with, they all like vampire stories. They all like them. And when these authors can't get their stuff published with the traditional publisher, they'll go get it published independently, and they're doing pretty well for themselves. Like, regardless of what the market thinks, there is a value and a want for the vampire genre. Now, at the same time, I understand that they don't want to saturate the market with this stuff and they're trying to push different things out, but I mean, like, if the people want it, give it to them. I'm honestly really curious about where the next few years, probably the next decade in publishing is going to go, because as the ability to self-publish becomes easier, it's just going to prosper a lot more, and there's only so many deals that the publishers can cut with Amazon and Barnes and Noble until, you know, those two industries realize that they can make more money if they go ahead and promote the independent authors as much as they are promoting the traditional authors. And for those of you who aren't aware, back in 2002 when the recession hit, that was when self-publishing really hit a boom. It was like the serious golden age of self-publishing. You could type in a thing, you could find some books, they were selling, they were hotcakes, everybody loved them. And what was going on there is that the traditional publishers weren't making a lot of money, so they went and cut a deal with Amazon and basically said, when they type in the keywords, have all of our traditional books published up in the first 10 results and then have the rest come in after that. And then independent publishing after that took a serious nosedive. And I know that because one of the guys that runs the writing group that I go to, he was there during that golden age, and he said he was actually able to quit his main job for a while because he was making enough as a self-published author that he didn't need to, and then the deal got cut, and his stuff didn't just get cut in half, it got cut down to a fourth. He was not making nearly as much. And again, pure speculation on my part. You know, I'm just basing it off of observations in the college studies. That doesn't mean it's going to come true. These are just kind of like me going, I think that this is the way it's going to go. But who knows what's going to happen. Maybe, things are radically changing right now when it comes to online shopping and searching and being able to communicate with each other online. So for all I know, like in 2020, like some huge revolution will happen online and self-published authors will get screwed over again. And I'm not dishing like the traditionally published authors either. Y'all are swell. I like y'all. I'm just saying that just things are changing, and how they're changing is just going to be interesting. I was talking to my boss over at Otherworld Inc. and I was like, I really think you need to start vamping up the self-indie services, you know, the editing, the cover art, the formatting, and all that. And he was like, well, why do you think that? I was like, because I went and looked at some other websites that promote indie services, and they're all booked for the next 6 months to a year. That means that people are coming in and asking for covers and formatting and all this other stuff. And if they're that busy, and these are multiple people, like I looked at probably like 20 different websites, and they're all booked for that long. And if you have 20 different companies of that nature producing that kind of product for people, there's a demand for it, which tells me that, you know, the self-published thing is really going to boom again as far as I'm concerned. It's that barrier that everybody always talks about, it's getting a lot smaller. In fact, the only thing I think is stopping self-published authors from being as successful as the traditional published authors is, one, the stigma, right? That's the big one. But it's also the TOS on Amazon. I've talked about this before in a previous video about an author who had her book taken down because it violated TOS because it had a situation with rape in it, and I rolled my eyes at that because I don't know if you guys have been reading YA fantasy, but rape is like a reoccurring theme in those books. It's used to threaten people, it's used to show how bad a villain is, which I really hate. Please move away from that stereotype. And it's used a lot, like it's always used, but you never see Amazon go after the traditional publishers going like, well, your book has rape in it, so we're gonna have to take you down for TOS. It's complete rubbish and it needs to go away. So I definitely would like to have a discussion about this because, again, this is just my perspective, and of course, like, I am living in Carol world and there's so much more information that's out there, and I would love to hear from other people who are either traditionally published or are independently published if you would like to share your thoughts in regards to the lack of transparency when it comes to basically the income of an author, the struggles that authors have to actually cope with when it comes to the finances, because nobody wants to talk about that. We all just assume movie deals are coming in and everything's paid off. And then I also would like to have a discussion, or you can share your thoughts in regards to the direction that you think publishing is going. This is obviously a very big thing for me because it's part of my job. But I just really want to spread awareness about this topic and bring other voices into it and just see what we all have to say about it. And if these questions aren't clear, I'll post them again down in the comments. So those are kind of my discussion topics for this week. I think next week I want to talk about book reviews, but let me know if you're interested in that. If you're not interested, I will not talk about it. It's just something that has been kind of like nagging at me in the back of my brain, not because of my own book reviews, but because of when I do like my drunk book reviews, I always typically go and see what other people are saying because I think input from a variety of sources is really good. And there's just been some book reviews where I've been like, wow. And I kind of wanted to talk about it, like what a good book review is, what a bad book review is, and you know, things of that nature. But if you think I'm overstepping myself because I am an author, just let me know and I won't talk about it at all. Speaking of books, I do have my book out on Amazon right now. Queens of Swords and Silence is available in paperback and on Kindle. If you are interested, it is still in the Kindle Unlimited plan, so if you are enrolled in that, you can read it on there too. I would really appreciate a review on Amazon. I'm trying to hit 50. That's my goal for next quarter, to have 50 reviews of my book there, but again, we'll see what happens. But if you read it and you liked it, you can just leave a review on there. It doesn't have to be, it just has to be there. But that's all I have for you today. Thank you so much for watching. I look forward to having this discussion with you in the comments, and I will see y'all next Friday.